Cell phones across the United States went kablooey this morning, and they're telling us it was a solar flare. Friends, it was not a solar flare, and I will tell you why. I have a number of reasons here, and they're all scientific. I'm not in a lab coat, but I'm going to explain them to you in such a way that you are going to be like, yeah, they're lying to us again. Also, we're going to be talking about a major hacking attack, which may not be related, that is impacting pharmacies across the United States. Prescriptions are going to take longer because one of the prescription processing companies has come under a major cyber attack, and it is impacting people's accessibility to medications. Let's jump into it. Welcome to the Poplar Report. I'm Steve Poplar. I'm an accountant by trade, and we don't waste your time here. We get right into it, so let's do that very thing. All right, so right about now, AT&T is saying that about 75% of the people who lost cell phone coverage are back on. My parents are back on. They just texted me. So a lot of you guys that had AT&T, that experienced outages, are back online. We're talking about an area up New York City, all the way down to Texas, Chicago, all over the place, obviously down in Florida. We have AT&T out. Now, there have been reports that Verizon, T-Mobile were also out, but they were not. It's just people from those networks trying to call AT&T people, and they can't get through. It was AT&T and potentially Cricket as well, because that is owned by AT&T. Now, the first thing they came out and they started saying was a solar flare happened right about the same time that the AT&T outage happened. But we have several problems with that theory. One is that it was actually two solar storms, and they did not really emit a major coronal mass ejection. The amount of energy directed towards Earth was relatively minor. We're talking about, in our X-class categories, a 1.8 and a 1.7. These are not super strong flares. This will game up your satellites a little bit, but we're talking about something that happens like 10 times a year or so. To put this in perspective, in 2003, we had a real solar storm. It was classified, the sensors went kablooey at X28, I think it was. X28 or X23, but they projected that it actually was a strength of X45. So we're talking about X45 versus over 20 times as powerful as what we just experienced here. So we're not talking about a super strong event that was going to mess up cell phones. The second thing I'm going to point out here is there's a little bit of a problem. The Earth was in the way, right? Initial outages for the AT&T network started at 4 a.m. before dawn. So now I know radio waves can kind of, arc, and they can bend around the Earth a little bit, but the United States was not facing the sun, okay? You know who was facing the sun right about that time? That was Europe. Is Europe experiencing any issues with cell phones today? No. They did not have any issues with cell phones today, and yet they were the ones square facing, actually technically Africa was, but Africa's not experiencing cell phone issues either. So the part of the planet that was facing the sun did not experience any cell phone issues, and the cell phone and the parts in the United States that were impacted were facing away from the sun at that time. So that doesn't make sense. And then we have this. Why only AT&T? Why not Verizon? Why not T-Mobile? Why not, what is Sprint anymore these days? Sprint doesn't exist anymore. They got bought out by somebody. I forget who. But anyway, so we have basically three main carriers inside the United States now. Two of them were unaffected whatsoever. Only one of them was affected. So this does point to the fact that just because the solar flares were not very strong, they haven't historically impacted cell phones at that strength. Two, the planet was in the way. Three, Europe would have been more affected by it, but for some reason they weren't. And then on top of that, why only one carrier inside the United States? This really points to either somebody fat-fingered something inside the AT&T network, and they pushed a button, or something happened, something broke, and they suddenly plunged into darkness, and it's taken them that long to get things booted back up, or it was a cyber attack. Now, they're not saying it's a cyber attack at this point, but notably AT&T isn't saying anything right now, and they're not legally required to say that it was a cyber attack for a while. They have time. They have, I forget how many weeks they have before they have to notify us that there was a cyber attack, and then they have to tell us whether or not anyone's information was compromised. So basically, they don't have to say anything for a while, and you know what? With their lawyers in the room and everything like that, they ain't going to say anything for a while. So even if it was a cyber attack, they won't admit it for a while. Unless it's politically advantageous to do so. If it's politically advantageous to do so, they may come out and to be like, this is what happened, you know, Russia did it. And if they do come out, it's going to be Russia, basically is what they're going to say, because that's what's politically advantageous. If it was the Chinese, they're not going to want to admit that. If it was, you know, the Iranians, it's going to be embarrassing that the Iranians got that deep into the U.S. Infrastructure, right? If it was North Korea, we're just going to quit and go home, right? If the North Koreans somehow pulled that off, So we have AT&T has gone down and they're back up again. Be warned, if this was a cyber attack, they could still have access to the AT&T network and everything like that. You may lose access again. If it goes back and forth kind of thing, if they moved everything over to backup servers and stuff like that, it's possible that those could be corrupted as well. We'll see. If the AT&T network goes down again, it will look more like a cyber attack for sure. All right, I talked to you about pharmacies, right? I said there's a major pharmacy hack. Let's talk about that now. So the pharmacy hack is Change Healthcare. Now, they've just informed us that this cyber attack happened, which means it was a little bit ago. So this may explain why we've been seeing some significant pharmacy issues, why pharmacists have not been able to pull up people's information. It's taken a lot longer to process prescriptions. Does that sound at all familiar to anybody? So it was due to this cyber attack of this company called Change Healthcare. Now, they are a central prescription processing company. And so they are, they're getting orders and they're authorizing orders and they're making sure things don't, that you're not being prescribed things that you ought not to. They're passing your health records on to pharmacists so they can review to see if this is going to, interact with any other prescriptions that you have right now. So important stuff, but this Change Healthcare is not a standalone company. It's part of like one big company. I forget which one it is, but it's part of like one of the big healthcare companies. But this is one of those companies that's behind the scenes. It's doing networking and it's passing information around. So a couple questions there. One, is it just an outage of services, or have millions of Americans' healthcare records been compromised? That's an important question that we're not hearing yet, but we will keep an eye as Change Healthcare starts to disclose the effects of this hacking attack. How much were people's personal information being accessed? People's payment methods, were they accessed? How many people are exposed and how deeply are they exposed in this? And so that's a big set of questions we got to ask. Right now, that does start to explain some of the things we've been seeing with pharmacies. So if you're having trouble getting your prescription filled, this may be one of the reasons why. That may be why it won't help you going to another pharmacist, because if they're using the same system, that's just not going to work any better. They are waiting for the information to come through so that they can review things, and that's what's going on with that. All right, friends. So let us know if you have AT&T. Let us know down in the comments if you're back online. If you're watching this on your cell phone, you're back online unless you're on the Wi-Fi. Right now, just a couple points here. Just FYI stuff, super useful. AT&T lost cell phone coverage, but a lot of people found that they could make phone calls using Wi-Fi. I used this trick before. Some phones can do this, and some you may need an app to do this. So this is one of those things where I'd strongly urge you to at least have one app on your phone, maybe two, that you can actually call people over Wi-Fi. So make sure that you can, so what you can do is you can sit in your home, you can turn your phone over to airplane mode, where you have access to the Wi-Fi, and you can turn on the Wi-Fi so that your phone can't sense the cell phone towers, but it can interact with your Wi-Fi. See if you can make phone calls. This is something good to test right now. Do that, and if it doesn't work, then you can use things like WhatsApp, Skype. You can use some of these, I don't know, even Zoom or whatever. Get an app or two that will work for you on Wi-Fi if your phone won't naturally make phone calls over Wi-Fi. Also, usually your text messages will work over Wi-Fi. However, I have experienced issues when you have multiple people on the thing, so it changes from an SMS to a MMS or something like that. When it becomes a multiple party text message, I've found that those don't seem to work so well. Now, this may be years ago, they may have fixed this or whatever, I don't know. But just keep that in mind as well, that if you're texting like a party or group, those may not go through. And if they don't, you may be able to text just one person and that may work. Now, of course, things like WhatsApp and other things, you can text through those apps as well to people. So that's another useful thing to do. So think those things through. If your cell phone service goes down, but you still have Wi-Fi in your home, make sure that you can make phone calls. Make sure you can still interact with people. But then, of course, you have to be ready for it to go the other way too, where power in your house goes out and you no longer have Wi-Fi. Can you operate the things you need to operate based off your cell phone? Can you turn your cell phone into a hotspot so you can, if you have business stuff you need to get done, all that kind of stuff, do you have access to internet? And then finally, the big question, if you have no access to Wi-Fi and you have no access to cell phone service, can you still communicate? Do you have any ways of communicating? Radios? We had a special up that I threw up on the community board on this channel just yesterday. I'm not sure if it's still good, but the Baofangs were on sale. So they're cheap. They won't get you that far, but it will pick up stuff from further away, which is important. And they do work like weather radios and pick up emergency stations and such. So that is good. Make sure you understand the laws related to that. Once everything goes completely squirrely, it's going to be a free-for-all for anything. But while the grid is still up, if you transmit illegally on certain channels, you can be triangulated relatively easily by people. And there's a bunch of bored people in the ham radio community that would just love to triangulate your position and report you to the police. So just be aware, every time you press that transmit button, you are lighting yourself up. You are lighting up a beacon that anyone with antennas can sense and can actually figure out where you are, and they can, and they can report you. So, and they will. I don't know why they're so into that, but the ham community is very, very much about cracking down on people who are transmitting where they ought not to be. And I understand they're putting some time and effort and money into these networks and stuff like that. And if you mess up their network, they're more likely to come after you. But there's some people who just literally just spend their time policing the radio waves, looking for rogue transmissions, and that's how they kind of. That's where they get joy in life. So if you get those radios, make sure you understand the rules and regulations, and don't break those rules and regulations unless you need to. If someone's life is at stake, you can absolutely break any of those rules to save a life. Having those radios will even in times of when things are up, you will be able to communicate somewhat. But understand their limitations as well. They're relatively short range with the transmissions. You can upgrade the antennas, get some more range. There's other things you can do. You can also hook them up to bigger antennas and other things too, if you know what you're doing. All right, friends, thanks so much for watching. If you want to check out another video from this channel, there's one right up here. I'll see you over there, or I'll see you guys later. Steve Poplar of the Poplar Report.